The highly educated, the people who are driving this will all be fine. In other words, everybody in Davos and the Davos universe will be fine.
If you were worried about Davos, perhaps thinking that the Great Reset was a real thing, then it's not going to alarm you to hear Eric Schmidt saying the Davos universe will be fine. That might as well have been Darth Vader. The Davos universe will be fine. What about that planet you're blowing up to upset Princess Leia? Oh no, they're In this episode of our Great Reset series, we'll be looking at Eric Schmidt talking in Davos and reading from Naomi Klein's article in The Intercept to pose the question, are big tech and governments colluding to prevent us having any meaningful power forever?
What is your vision for the future state of the digital economy?
New developments in machine intelligence will make us far, far smarter as a result. And this means everyone on the planet.
It's pretty clear that these kind of leaders, these influential and powerful figures, see technology as the solution to all of our problems. There's no doubt that technology has solved many, many problems, but the idea of a technological solution underwritten by capitalist principles, I think, is terrifying, because it could involve giving massive amounts of data to companies that have already shown that they will misuse it, and massive amounts of power to companies and states that are becoming increasingly less interested in simple things like civil liberties. Naomi Klein had this to say: it's taken some time to gel, but something resembling a coherent pandemic shock doctrine is beginning to emerge. She's using her own phrase there, where Naomi Klein says that, often wars are used to usher in new laws or tragic events like 9/11 and its relationship to the Gulf War, or how in many Latin American countries disruption was provoked by Secret Service agencies and then solutions to those problems were provided. I suppose what Naomi Klein is asking is the pandemic, even if it's an entirely legitimate medical problem, being used to fortify power of institutions that already have a great deal of power? She says the solutions we're being offered are far more high-tech than anything we've seen during previous disasters. The future that's being rushed into being treats our past weeks of physical isolation not as a painful necessity to save lives, but as a living laboratory for a permanent and highly profitable no-touch future. One of my concerns when the regulations around this pandemic became further entrenched was they may well be necessary to stop the spread of coronavirus, but a side effect of this necessity, shall we say, is that it's beneficial to very powerful interests. Amazon benefits. The state always benefits from more control. And if a particular situation benefits the most powerful interests in the world, how will people without power ever challenge a return to ordinary life or normal life? In the same way, of course, that it doesn't matter to powerful interests that there are poor people or homeless people or mentally ill people. So the measures that are offered will always be measures that do not affect the interests of the powerful. Now we have something on a global scale that is representative of a paradigm we've seen in action for a long time.
There'll be so many IP addresses, so many devices, sensors, things that you're wearing, things that you're interacting with, that you won't even sense it. It'll be part of your presence all the time.
Oh, that's not terrifying. I'm not even sensing some up-me-arse probe that's making decisions about how I travel to work. Well, when I say work, from the bathroom to the front room to sit blithely staring.
Imagine you walk into a room and the room is dynamic, right? And you, again, with your permission and all of that.
Yeah, your permission. We'll probably get your permission, but it'll be on a very, very long, boring document that you won't want to read. Hey, why are my nipples buzzing? You gave your permission.
You're interacting with the things going on in the room. A highly personalized, highly interactive, and very, very interesting world emerges.
We've got that already. Like eyes and ears and noses and Mozart and God and pets and love and one another, Eric. Not everything has to be coming at us through a phone.
It's all basically because these smartphones are really supercomputers. Talk to the people that I meet with for whom the arrival of the smartphone is the most important thing in their life, perhaps besides that of a child.
When I think about my best experiences in my life, there's the birth of my first child. That was amazing, the miracle of childbirth. Second child, feel like I'm really part of the family. But when I got this little guy, hold on, where's my phone? Where is it? Get them children out onto those streets. Just find my phone. Siri! Siri!
400 million people in the past year got a smartphone. And if you think that's a big deal, imagine the impact on that person in a developing world.
Of course, like, we all love our devices, but surely at this point in history we're beginning to question the deal we may have made with technology, that we have a device that offers us connection but mines our data, that manipulates our attention. For me, when I see Eric Schmidt saying imagine the impact on the developing world, I don't think it's going to be great. I think that's terrifying. It sounds like a terrifying prediction. Klein continues that the doctrine being offered by Eric Schmidt and his Davos acolytes includes far fewer teachers being employed, fewer doctors and drivers, a future where society accepts no cash or credit cards under the guise of virus control, a future that claims to be run on artificial intelligence but is actually held together by tens of millions of anonymous workers tucked away in warehouses and data centers, content moderation mills, electronic sweatshops, lithium mines, industrial farms, meat processing plants and prisons where they are left unprotected from disease and hyper-exploitation. The phone is an interesting metaphor, isn't it? Because it provides us with a beautiful gadget with a shimmering screen that gives us access to products and people. But behind it are the contents of the phone, the necessary minerals that go into it. We're being offered a culture like this that seems, if you are in a position of privilege, to be shimmering and attractive, but it's held up on the labour of millions of oppressed people. Perhaps the post-colonial world, or even the feudal world, has always been like this, but we can't now, with the benefit of hindsight, present it as a utopia. We have to acknowledge it for what it is, an unfair, corrupt and exploitative system. We can't draw a veil over the millions of oppressed people simply by saying, look at what a great job we're doing of delivering commodities or providing interesting and intricate apps. We have to own the shadow of these technological advances, and unless the ideals behind them are altered, changed, put in the hands of ordinary people, we are advancing, accelerating at a terrifying rate to a future where you have no power or influence over your own life.
The globalization that this forum and that all of us believe in has produced ties that bind. You cannot isolate yourself anymore.
Oh, we can't isolate ourselves anymore? Well, you better tell everyone I know, baby, because they're sitting tapping on the windows having mental breakdowns.
So if I go forward, I imagine a whole new generation of technology and ideas. Think about a computer that gives you enormously personal, helpful advice.
You don't look very nice today. That pink tie clashes with some of that skin under your chin. Your chin skin is clashing with your tie. Shut up! Giving me this helpful advice, you bastard! Turn it off! There's no off button. Off!
What should I do today? What am I interested? Where should I go? How do I make these choices?
I don't want to give my computer the freedom to choose where I should go, what am I interested in. I can choose that for myself. If you don't know where to go and what you're interested in, what kind of life are you living? Where should I go? What am I interested in? Stay indoors, don't do nothing. Okay, until we have total control over the entire population, then you can pop out and look at a barren wasteland and laugh maniacally to yourself. Ha, 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 ha.
We're on the cusp of an acceleration of the level of impact of that, and it's almost overwhelmingly good.
Well, this is what Naomi Klein has to say. Eric Schmidt is at the dead centre of this new shock doctrine, using the pandemic to facilitate further tech power and less power for you ordinary people. She says, well before Americans understood COVID-19, Schmidt had been on an aggressive lobbying and public relations campaign. At the heart of Schmidt's vision is seamless integration of government with a handful of Silicon Valley giants, with public schools, hospitals, doctors' offices, police and military all outsourcing at high cost, mark you, many of their core functions to private tech companies. Essentially, this is the privatization of the state through a technocracy. So the state will no longer be something that you even feel tangentially or remotely belongs to you. It is the property of big business, and you are now officially a consumer. Now, people like me have argued for a long, long while, hey, is democracy really that meaningful if it doesn't matter if you vote for this person or this person, you're still basically going to get this kind of government that agrees with these policies, that's responding to these lobbyists, that's going to be involved in these actions in the Middle East, that's going to tax you in more or less the same way. What's the meaning of it? Well, now, that's like last of the summer wine shit. We're in like proper territory where people with immense power and immense ability to control, which I suppose is what power is, are moving towards their end game. I think this is a time where it's very, very important that we awaken. It's a good job that the laws to protest aren't being radically altered to prevent you going on the streets. Hold on, sorry, what's that? Oh, stay indoors forever and never argue with anyone.
Are we as an industry creating jobs, or are we killing jobs faster than we're creating them?
Let's posit that the highly educated, the people who are driving this will all be fine.
Let's posit that CEOs of silicone giants will be fine. Well, yeah, they probably will, mate. But listen to this. All these companies are repositioning themselves as benevolent protectors of public health and munificent champions of everyday hero essential workers. But many of them, like delivery drivers, will lose their jobs if companies get their way. In this technocratic utopia that Eric Schmidt is describing, it's pretty clear the way it's going. I mean, look at what's happening in the pandemic already. Who's benefiting? Local businesses shutting down. You can see that anywhere you go.
The core question is an economic one. Can you afford to stay behind in a technological or business opportunity, or does it make sense to become more efficient? All the laws of economics tell you that a globalized solution that is more efficient ultimately produces better wealth for everyone.
No, I'm not sure about that, mate. There are no laws of economics. It's a mutable and changing ideology. It can't really properly be called a science. It's the imposition of a philosophy that benefits whoever, benefits from the philosophy. I suppose it's a cyclical thing. This reality is perpetuated because the people that believe in that reality are in a position to influence and alter the reality. Those are not laws of economics. Those are the laws of power. And saying that unless he's actually saying get on board or die. That's what he's saying, isn't it? That if you go, oh, hold on a minute, we've got a different set of priorities, the happiness of ordinary people, cohesion, community, bonding, people feeling empowered in their own lives. Sooner or later, I pray, people will awaken to the reality that you are in limitless space in every direction, that you are a human being, that culture is an illusion. Look up into the starry sky at night, if you can still see it, amidst the satellites, and recall that all human culture is laying upon this earth. None of it is real. It's all constructed through our consciousness. It's all a result of ideas that have passed through human consciousness. None of it is absolute. So if the results of it are ecological destruction, if the results of it are alienation, isolation, increased addiction and mental illness, then you have to start querying whether or not we have the right central tenets to our ideology. This is what has to be questioned. We're not asking, is technology good or bad? Technology is a tool and potentially neutral if it's in the hands of the right people. If its intentions are empowerment, diversity of interests, freedom of speech, the right to control your own destiny. If it's concentrated, consolidated, and you get contracts between nations and tech giants, it's pretty clear to see what kind of outcome you'll get and what will happen to anybody who opposes these ideas.
So often the question is then asked, well, what happens to the person whose job is lost? Well, it's the same thing that happened when people stopped farming and started using tractors and so forth. They find new skills and new services.
It's not a children's book. Well, do you remember before the tractors, old MacDonald? That poor guy had to just pull his cart on the back of an oxen. But then he got that tractor, didn't he? Hold on a minute, mate. Agriculture is quite complex. People to this day still debate whether or not agriculture is the right solution, that whether or not we should have permacultures, whether or not we should have localized farming where we eat produce that's grown around us. That's a really bad example that you've offered up there. Klein says, until recently, public pushback against these Silicon Valley giants was surging. People were beginning to realize, hang on, they've got too much power. Democracy was turning out to be the single greatest obstacle to Schmidt's vision. The inconvenient exercise of power by members of the public has, from the perspective of men like Schmidt and Jeff Bezos, maddeningly slowed down the AI arms race, keeping fleets of potentially deadly driverless cars and trucks off the roads, protecting private health records from becoming a weapon used by employers against workers, preventing urban spaces from being blanketed with facial recognition software, and much more. Their intentions are clear. That's the future they see. That's the future they're heading towards. Without public opposition, that's where it's going. And as long as we live in a kind of a reality that's determined by certain economic imperatives, I mean the goals and incentives of these already powerful organizations, then that is the solution. Technology is most certainly a key part of how we must protect public health in the coming months and years. If we are indeed seeing how critical digital connectivity is in times of crisis, should these networks and our data really be in the hands of private players like Google, Amazon and Apple? Well, on the basis of stuff that we already know, thanks to Edward Snowden, who's coming up soon on Under the Skin, my podcast that you can subscribe to on Luminary, forgive my own capitalism right there, then you do have to be bloody careful. If public funds are paying for so much of this technology, and that's what they're lobbying for all this AI to be funded, they're not going to come up with it from investors, they want you to pay for it. The government don't have any money, it takes it off of you. The government's not got a business selling sandwiches somewhere, the government's money's yours, it's your money. So in a democratic society, you go, well, I'll give you 50%, 40%, 30% of my income through taxes, but would you mind telling me what you're going to do with that money, and could you possibly do things with that money that I agree with? Does that seem too much to ask? Well, let me tell you now, it is too much to ask. If public funds are paying for so much of it, should the public also own and control it? If the internet is essential for so much in our lives, as it clearly is, should it be treated as a non-profit public utility? Clearly, Klein's question here is a rhetorical one. Naomi Klein is what you might call a sort of, I don't know, traditional leftist liberalist, but I would say to you, even if you are an ardent Trump person or a Q person or a non-person, because I know they're separate things, how could you query anything Naomi Klein is saying here? Do you want your life controlled by Silicon Valley giants? Do you want the internet dominated by private interests? Do you want your government using your taxes to fund the endeavours of these organisations that have already shown what their interests are? And it's already been demonstrated that they're beyond the reach of governmental regulation and intervention.
We need governments to do one very important thing, which is to
give us your money,
which is to help build and license this infrastructure to make this incredible future happen as quickly as possible.
License means give us power, help build means give us the money. All we want is your money and your freedom. Is that too much to ask?
There's this enormous meme in the society where everyone assumes that this time it's different. Somehow no one's going to have a job in the world, and it's just going to be the Davos elite, and we're just going to have a good time, and everyone else is going to be rioting, or some stereotype like that.
Oh, there's a Davos elite. Yawn, 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 that old stereotype.
Everyone gets smarter because of this technology, because it's free or very inexpensive. It's been a transition from the elites. Remember, the elites were the only people who could read.
Those bloody elites.
Right? Now, then everyone could read.
You can't say that elitism is ended because everybody can read. We don't read because mostly it's those sprawling 500-page contracts telling you that Apple will be stealing your data as a result of a deal you've just clicked and ticked with them. Elitism is alive and well, and only an elitist would dare to claim that that's not the case.
We are all participating in this enormous transition where billions of people are joining our party.
Equality, real equality, cannot be achieved by giving people access to these devices and therefore theoretically the products that they might be able to gain through them, or the utility of a really good compass or app that does whatever. Real equality means the ability to control your own life, and in fact a bit of space to even consider what kind of life you might want to live. I mean, don't you increasingly feel that a life where you have a relationship with nature, some time with your family, the ability to move freely about, to live a life that isn't continually tethered to your ability to consume or your ability to work? Who are you? Schmidt seems to be focusing on technology's ability to potentially connect people, to expand our lives and our horizons. But isn't it part of your reality, your lived experience, that it is shrinking our lives, putting you in a position where you don't have real lived interconnection and communication with other people? As Naomi Klein describes, Schmidt's vision for the future is a future in which our homes are never again exclusively personal spaces, but are also, via high-speed digital connectivity, our schools, our doctor's offices, our gyms, and if determined by the state, our jails. You can see how such a reality would be very convenient to the state and their powerful partners in big business. And it's becoming clear to me that without meaningful opposition, it's a foregone conclusion.
And I think the evidence is that the winners in every market will be the ones that use software and machine intelligence most effectively. If you're not using it, you're going to lose to somebody who is.
That's right. Let's use the old Terra to drive you onto their software networks.
And that's sort of where we are. And that's going to be true for another decade for sure, maybe two.
For God's sake, get outside and fly a kite, shake the hands of a stranger, eat a peculiar dish you've not eaten before from a culture you've never visited, know what it is to be human, know the limitless expressions of humanity that are all around us, the beauty, the love, the ways of loving, the ways of being. These are available to you. It ain't yet over. Evolution is still happening. The glory could still be about us. We can remold and change society however we want to. I think you'll find that's unrealistic. The happiest day of my life was when I got this little guy. Right, Bertie? I love Eric. Why are you wearing that tie again? Shut up about the tie!
I think those are the best words we could end this session. Thank you very much.
This is a place and a space where we're interested in developing, evolving and discussing these ideas. Please subscribe to this if you like it. Go over to russellbrand.com and sign up to my mailing list if you wanna. But most importantly, recognize that you are a free human being and you do have the right to direct your own destiny, that your life does not belong to powerful people who don't care about you.